I watched my sister destroy 2 lives with 1 sentence. And I was supposed to be the one getting married. My name is Sheila Oliver. I'm 28 years old, and this was my wedding day. The church smelled like roses. My dress felt like a cloud. I was standing in a small room just off the main hall, waiting to walk down the aisle and marry the man I loved, David. Everything was perfect. But then my sister, Megan, started to cry. She was my maid of honor. Her tears were supposed to be happy ones. These were not happy tears. They were ugly, twisted, and full of something I had never seen in her before. She was looking at Mark, David's best man, with pure hate. "The rings are gone," she sobbed, pointing a shaking finger at him. "They were in my purse, and now they're gone. He took them. I saw him near my bag." Everything stopped. The music, the laughter from the hall, even my own heart. The rings weren't just any rings. They were my grandmother's. They were the only thing I had left of her. Mark's face went pale. He was David's best friend since they were kids. He was like a brother to me. "Megan, what are you talking about?" Mark asked, his voice calm. But his hands were shaking. "I was never near your bag." "Liar," she screamed. My perfect day shattered into a million tiny pieces. David rushed into the room, his eyes wide with confusion. He looked at Megan crying, then at Mark's shocked face. He didn't look at me. That was the first thing that broke my heart. He took my sister's side. He put his arm around her. "Mark, just give them back," David said. It wasn't a question. It was a command. My future husband was accusing his best friend, my friend, of being a thief, all because of my sister's act. I saw Mark's shoulders slump. He looked defeated. But then, he slowly reached into his suit pocket. He wasn't pulling out the rings. He was pulling out his phone. He pressed a button, and a new voice filled the silent room. It was my sister's. "I'm going to ruin her big day," Megan's voice hissed from the phone's speaker. "She's always had everything. Now it's my turn." My world just fell apart. He believed her over me. If you want to see me expose my sister's lies and get the justice we both deserve, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. I feel so completely alone right now. Please comment with the city or state you're watching from so I can see that there's a world of support out there. It would mean everything to me. The sound of my sister's voice filled the small room. It was cold and sharp, like a piece of broken glass. For a second, no one moved. No one even breathed. The ugly words from Mark's phone hung in the air, proving everything. My sister was a liar. David stared at the phone, his face blank with shock. My sister, Megan, turned white as a ghost. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I thought, this is it. The truth is finally out. I waited for David to wrap his arms around me and tell Mark he was sorry. But he didn't. Instead, Megan started to scream. "That's not me. It's a fake," she shrieked, tears streaming down her face again. "Mark made a fake recording. David, you know he's good with computers. He's trying to trick you." My heart sank into my stomach. How could she lie like this? David looked from Mark's steady gaze to Megan's desperate, crying face. And he hesitated. That one moment of doubt felt worse than a knife in my back. Why did she hate me so much that she would do this? "David," I whispered, my voice trembling. "You can't possibly believe her." But his eyes were filled with confusion. He was caught in her web of lies. And in that moment, I knew my perfect wedding was truly over. The problem wasn't just the rings anymore. Suddenly, Megan gasped loudly. "My purse," she cried out, pointing to the floor. "Look, there's a tear in the side." She scrambled to pick it up, turning it upside down. With a soft clink, our grandmother's 2 gold wedding rings fell onto the carpet. Everyone stared at the rings. Megan looked up, a twisted smile on her face. "See," she said, her voice dripping with fake relief. "He must have cut my bag to take them, then panicked when he was caught and dropped them back in." It was a brilliant lie. It was a wicked lie. It explained everything in a way that still made Mark look guilty. My parents were at the door now, their faces full of worry. They had heard the screaming and the commotion. The whole world was closing in on me. I looked at David, my eyes begging him to see the truth. "David," I said, my voice barely audible, "who do you believe? Your best friend and the woman you are about to marry? Or her?" He looked at me, his face a mask of pain. He opened his mouth and I held my breath, praying he would make the right choice. Then he turned away from me and looked at my sister. "Megan," he said softly, "let's go outside. We need to talk." He walked out, leaving me alone with my broken heart. He walked out. He chose my sister over me, and left me standing in a room full of broken promises. The silence he left behind was louder than all of Megan's screams. Mark looked at me, his eyes full of pity. My own parents just stared, their faces pale. My mom was the first to speak, her voice a tiny whisper. "Oh, Sheila. You know how she's been since the accident." "What accident?" I had no idea what she was talking about. My mind raced, trying to find a memory that would explain any of this, but found nothing. Before I could ask, my dad stepped forward. He had a look on his face that I knew well. It was his fix-it face. "This is a disaster," he said, not looking at me. "Mark, you should go." "Sheila, go back to the dressing room. I'll tell the guests we've had a slight delay." He was sending Mark away. The only person who had proof of the truth. He was choosing to hide the problem instead of solving it. I felt a cold wave of despair wash over me. I wasn't just losing my fiancé. I was losing my entire family. Alone in the dressing room, the beautiful white dress felt like a cage. I could hear the muffled sounds of people talking and laughing outside. They had no idea my world was ending just a few feet away. What were David and Megan talking about? Was he holding her hand, telling her it was all okay? My phone buzzed. It was a text from Mark. "Don't worry. I'm not leaving you. I have a plan." A tiny spark of hope lit up inside me, but it was quickly snuffed out when my mother walked in. Her face was tight with anger, and her eyes were cold. "Sheila, this has gone on long enough," she said, her voice sharp. "Your father is trying to calm down 200 guests. You need to fix this. Go out there, find your sister, and apologize to her." Apologize. The word hit me like a slap. My own mother wanted me to say I was sorry. She wanted me to pretend Megan's lies were the truth, just to save face. In that moment, something inside me snapped. The sadness turned into a quiet, burning anger. Just then, the door opened again. It was David. He walked in alone, his face impossible to read. He wouldn't look me in the eye. He held my grandmother's rings in the palm of his hand, staring down at them as if they held all the answers. He finally looked up, and his eyes were full of exhaustion. "Megan is very sorry," he said, his voice flat. "She's waiting outside. She says if you can find it in your heart to forgive her, we can still do this." He paused, then asked the question that sealed my fate. "So, what do you want to do, Sheila? Everyone is waiting." I looked at David, the man I was supposed to spend my life with. He was offering me a deal. A lifetime of swallowing my sister's poison in exchange for a party. A lifetime of knowing he didn't choose me. He just didn't want to be embarrassed. A strange calm washed over me. The tears were gone. The fear was gone. All that was left was a cold, hard truth. This was not love. This was a cage, and he was asking me to lock myself inside it. I finally understood that I had to save myself. "No," I said. My voice was quiet, but it was the strongest sound in the room. I looked past him, at my mother who was staring in horror. "Is this because of the accident, Mom? The accident you never thought I should know about?" She flinched, her face telling me everything. Then I turned back to David. I slowly pulled the beautiful diamond ring from my finger. The ring he gave me when he promised to love and protect me forever. I held it out to him. "The wedding is off." His face crumpled in disbelief. He truly thought I would choose the lie. "Sheila, don't be ridiculous," my mother hissed. You can't do this. We have 200 people out there. David just stared at the ring in my hand. You would throw all of this away. Over a small family fight? He asked, his voice breaking. It wasn't a small fight. It was my entire life. I remembered Mark's text. I have a plan. I didn't know what his plan was, but it didn't matter. His loyalty gave me the strength to follow my own. I pushed past my mother and David, and walked out of the dressing room. Sheila, where are you going? Get back here! My mother yelled, her voice filled with panic. I ignored her. I walked with my head held high, my wedding dress trailing behind me like a ghost. I could feel every single eye in the church hall turn to watch me. The room was completely silent. The organist had stopped playing. Everyone was waiting. They thought they were waiting for a bride to walk down the aisle. They were about to get a much bigger show. I saw my sister, Megan, standing near the front, a smug little smile on her face. Her smile faded when she saw where I was going. I didn't walk towards the altar. I walked straight to the small podium where the speeches were supposed to happen later. I stepped up, my hands shaking slightly as I reached for the microphone. I took one last look at Megan. Her eyes were wide with fear. I tapped the mic, and the sound echoed through the silent church. Thank you all for coming, I said, my voice clear and loud. I'm sorry to have kept you waiting. This wedding is over. And now I'm going to tell you exactly why. Every eye in the church was locked on me. I saw friends, family, and people I barely knew. They were all holding their breath, waiting. I found my sister's face in the crowd. The smug confidence was gone, replaced by pure, cold panic. She knew what I was about to do. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. I began, my voice echoing in the silent hall. I was supposed to marry the man I love. But a terrible thing happened just a few moments ago. A lie was told that was so cruel it destroyed everything. I saw my father stand up from his seat in the front row. His face was red with anger. Sheila, stop this right now, he mouthed, his eyes begging me to be quiet. He started walking towards the podium, ready to pull me away and silence me. He wanted to protect our family's image. But he was not protecting me. My father is coming to stop me, I said clearly into the microphone. He wants me to keep the family secrets. The same secrets that allowed my sister's jealousy to grow like a weed in a dark room. My father froze in the aisle. Everyone turned to stare at him. He slowly sank back into his seat, defeated. I had a voice now, and no one was going to take it from me. This jealousy didn't start today. I think it started with an accident years ago, one they never told me the truth about. A low murmur spread through the crowd. Continued. My sister, my maid of honor, hid my grandmother's wedding rings. Then she accused the best man, Mark, of being a thief. She tried to send an innocent man to jail on my wedding day. The murmurs grew louder. People were shaking their heads in disbelief. I saw David standing near the back wall, looking completely lost. That's not all, I said, my voice getting stronger. When she lied, she didn't know one important thing. She didn't know Mark could hear her plotting. I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. She didn't know he was recording her. A collective gasp went through the room. Megan's face was a mask of pure fury. She's lying, she screamed from her seat. She is making it all up. But as her screams echoed, the two big projector screens on either side of the altar flickered on. They were supposed to show a slideshow of me and David growing up. Instead, a video began to play. It was a crystal-clear recording of my sister, Megan. Her face, twisted with anger, filled the screens. Her voice, sharp and cruel, filled the church. I'm going to ruin her big day, she sneered in the video. She's always had everything. Now it's my turn. The only sound in the church was my sister's recorded voice, dripping with poison. On the giant screens, her face was twisted into an ugly sneer. I watched the guests. Their faces changed from confusion to shock, and then to disgust. They were seeing the real Megan for the first time. The video ended. A terrible silence filled the room. Megan sat frozen in her chair, exposed. Hundreds of people were staring at her, their eyes like daggers. For a moment I almost felt sorry for her. Then she looked at me, and I saw no shame in her eyes. Only pure, burning hatred. Then she screamed. It was not a scream of sadness, but of pure rage. She launched herself out of her seat and charged towards me, her hands like claws. "I'll ruin you," she shrieked, her voice cracking. My mother and father just sat there, paralyzed by the horror of it all. But she never reached me. A figure stepped in front of the podium, blocking her path. It was Mark. He stood between us, a silent protector. He didn't even touch her, but he was a wall she could not pass. He had been accused and humiliated, yet here he was protecting me. "This is your fault," Megan screamed at me, struggling to get past Mark. "It's just like the accident. You always ruin everything for me." There it was again. The accident. The secret my family thought they could bury forever was now being screamed in a church full of strangers. Finally, my mother snapped out of her trance. She ran to Megan, grabbing her arm and trying to pull her away. "That's enough," she cried, her own face streaked with tears. My father, however, didn't go to Megan. He walked right up to Mark. "Are you happy now?" he snarled. "You've destroyed my family." He was blaming Mark. He was blaming the man who had only shown the truth. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The guests, horrified by the whole scene, began to stand up and leave. They walked out quietly, their heads down, as if leaving the scene of a terrible crash. My dream wedding had become a public nightmare. The beautiful hall was emptying out, leaving behind only the wreckage of my two families. I stepped down from the podium, my legs feeling weak. I saw David walking towards me through the chaos, his face pale and drawn. He stopped in front of me. I waited for an apology. I waited for him to say he was wrong, to say he was sorry he ever doubted me. He looked at my crying sister being dragged away, at his best friend standing guard over me, and at the last of our guests fleeing. He looked me right in the eye, and his voice was cold and empty. "Was all this really necessary, Sheila?" he asked. "We could have handled this privately." I stared at David. He wanted to know if my humiliation was necessary, if standing up for myself was worth making a scene. In that one selfish question I saw the rest of my life with him. It would be a life of hiding, of pretending, of putting his comfort before my own truth. A strange peace settled over me. I wasn't his bride anymore. I wasn't even angry. I just felt nothing. "Yes, David," I said, my voice as cold and clear as ice. "The truth is always necessary." I turned my back on him and walked away, leaving him standing alone in the wreckage of our life. My family was huddled together near the door. My mother was stroking Megan's hair while she sobbed. My father was staring at the floor, his face grim. They looked like strangers to me. "We need to talk," I said, walking towards them. "You need to tell me about the accident." My mother looked up, her eyes red and angry. "Look at what you've done to your sister. This is not the time, Sheila." My father just shook his head. "We are going home. This conversation is over." They were still protecting her. Even now they were choosing the lie. I was truly alone. My fiancé was a coward, and my family was a fortress of secrets. I felt a hand on my arm. It was Mark. "They're never going to tell you," he said softly. "But that doesn't mean you can't find out. Let me get you out of here." He was my only friend in the world right now. I nodded, ready to leave this nightmare behind me. But as we turned to go, two people blocked our path. It was David's parents. I braced myself for more anger, for more blame. David's mother looked at me, her eyes full of tears. But she didn't yell. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around me in a tight hug. I was so shocked I couldn't even move. "I am so sorry, Sheila," she whispered into my ear. "You are an incredible woman. You deserve so much better than the man my son became." Her kindness was the one thing that made me want to cry. She pulled back but kept her hands on my shoulders, looking me straight in the eye. I watched you today, and I have never been more proud of anyone. You did the right thing. She leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a secret whisper that only I could hear. I don't know the whole story of what happened when you were kids, she said. But I know who does. Your mother hasn't spoken to her in 15 years. I stared at her, my heart pounding. She gave my arm one last squeeze and said the two words that would change everything. Find your Aunt Carol. Find your Aunt Carol. The words echoed in my head as David's mother walked away. Aunt Carol. I had a faint memory of her, a woman with a big laugh who gave me piggyback rides when I was very little. Then one day she was just gone. No one ever spoke her name again. Mark gently guided me out of the church. Stepping outside felt like waking up from a dream. The sun was shining. Cars were driving by. The world hadn't ended, but mine had. I was standing on a sidewalk in a giant white wedding dress, a bride with no groom and nowhere to go. We got into Mark's car. As he drove away, I looked back one last time. I saw my parents carefully helping Megan into their car, as if she were made of glass. I saw David standing alone on the church steps, looking small and lost. Then we turned the corner, and they were all gone. Mark's apartment was small and quiet. Felt safe. He gave me an old sweatshirt and a pair of sweatpants to wear. Taking off the heavy wedding dress felt like shedding a different person's skin. I was no longer a bride. I wasn't sure who I was now, but I was free. Do you know anything about my Aunt Carol? I asked Mark as he handed me a cup of hot tea. He shook his head. I only know that her name was like a forbidden word. David once told me your mom and her sister had a fight so bad, they acted like the other one died. I had to find her. She was the key to everything. I pulled out my phone and started searching. Carol Oliver. Carol, sister of Susan Oliver. Nothing. I didn't know her married name. I didn't know where she lived. It was a dead end. Hope turned to frustration. How can I find her if I don't even know her name? I said, dropping the phone onto the couch. The feeling of being completely lost was starting to creep back in. I had a name, but the name was a ghost. My whole past felt like a story with missing pages. Then a thought sparked in my mind. Dusty old box. My grandmother, I said, jumping up. Years ago, my grandmother gave me a box of old photos and letters. It's at my apartment. Mark didn't hesitate. He grabbed his keys, and we raced back to the home I was supposed to share with David. The apartment was cold and silent. I ran to my closet and pulled the old wooden box from the top shelf. Back at Mark's, I dumped its contents onto the floor. Underneath piles of faded pictures I found it. Thick yellowed envelope. On the back, in my grandmother's shaky handwriting, was an address. My heart pounded as I read it. But the name on the front of the envelope wasn't Carol. It was a name I had never seen before. Who? I whispered, holding up the letter. Is Eleanor Vance in Hopewood, Oregon? Eleanor Vance. The name was a key to a lock I didn't know existed. My hands trembled as I looked at the old envelope. It had been sealed for years, a secret waiting for the right moment. Mark watched me, his expression gentle. The answer has to be inside, he said. With a deep breath, I carefully broke the seal. Inside was a single folded piece of paper, covered in my grandmother's familiar, elegant handwriting. The letter was addressed to me. My dearest Sheila, it began. If you are reading this, it means the secrets have finally started to come out. My eyes scanned the page, my heart pounding with every word. I'm sure you are looking for your Aunt Carol. You have found her. She had to change her name to Eleanor Vance years ago. She had to escape, my dear. She had to run away from what your parents did after the accident. My parents, they didn't just hide the truth. They did something. Something so bad it forced their own daughter, their own sister, to erase herself and disappear. A cold dread washed over me. The letter didn't say what they did. It only said that Carol was the only one who could tell me. Go to her, Sheila, the letter finished. The truth will be painful, but it is the only path to peace. Your heart is good and strong. Don't let their lies poison you. My grandmother's words felt like a shield, a final gift of love from beyond the grave. I folded the letter. I knew what I had to do. But how? Hopewood, Oregon was over 2,000 miles away. I had no money of my own, no car, nothing. The brief flicker of hope I felt began to fade. How could I possibly get there? "I'll take you," Mark said, as if he had read my mind. I looked at him, shocked. "Mark, you can't. That's crazy. It's a 4-day drive." He just shrugged. "What's more crazy than what you've already been through? You're not doing this alone. We'll leave in the morning." Tears filled my eyes. They weren't tears of sadness, but of overwhelming gratitude. For the first time in my life, I felt like someone was truly on my side. We packed a small bag that night, and before the sun rose, we were on the road, leaving my old life behind in the dark. For 2 days we just drove. We watched the cities turn into fields, and the fields turn into mountains. With every mile I felt lighter. We finally passed a sign that read, "Welcome to Oregon." I felt a smile spread across my face. We were close. Just then my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. There were only 9 words. "Turn back, Sheila. Some things are better left buried." My blood ran cold. The message on my phone was a warning, a threat from the shadows of my own family. Someone knew we were here. Someone wanted the truth to stay buried. For a second I wanted to listen. I wanted to turn the car around and drive away. But Mark looked at me, his eyes steady. "That message proves you're in the right place, Sheila," he said. "They're scared of you. They're scared of the truth." He was right. The fear was a signpost, pointing me exactly where I needed to go. The threat didn't stop me, it fueled me. We found the address on a quiet street lined with tall green trees. The house was small and blue, with a garden full of bright flowers. It looked peaceful. It looked like a place where secrets couldn't survive. My heart hammered against my ribs as I walked up the little stone path and knocked on the door. The door opened. A woman stood there with kind eyes and hair the color of salt and pepper. She was older, but I saw my mother's smile in her face. It was her. Faint memories from my childhood rushed back to me. This was my Aunt Carol. Tears welled up in her eyes. "I knew you would come one day," she whispered. "Your grandmother told me she would find a way." She welcomed us inside. Her home was warm and filled with light. We sat in her living room, and I finally asked the question that had followed me my whole life. "What was the accident?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Aunt Carol took a deep breath. "It wasn't your fault, Sheila," she started. "You were just kids, climbing the big oak tree in the backyard. Megan was always daring, always pushing things. She dared you to go higher. You slipped. You fell and broke your arm. It was a simple, terrible accident." "But that's not what Megan said," I whispered, remembering the whispers and the blame. "No," Carol said, her voice full of an old sadness. "When your parents came running, Megan was terrified she'd be in trouble. So she told a lie. She said you pushed her first, and that you fell on purpose to hurt her. It was a cruel, childish lie." My heart ached. It all started to make sense. "But you were there," I said. "You saw what happened." "Yes," she said, looking me in the eye. "I told your parents the truth. I told them Megan was lying." She paused, and her next words were the ones that broke my heart. "And they chose not to believe me. To protect Megan's story, they called me a liar. They told me to leave and never come back. They buried the truth to protect the lie. And they have been burying it ever since." Finally, I understood everything. My sister's jealousy, my parents' strange favoritism. My whole life spent feeling like I was somehow wrong. I wasn't wrong. I was just the one who carried the blame for a lie told long ago. Sitting here with my aunt who spoke the truth and my friend who helped me find it, I finally felt like I was home. Sheila's journey to the truth was long and painful, but she never gave up. If you believe that truth is always worth fighting for, please like this video. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded of their own strength. and subscribe to our channel for more stories that matter. Thank you for being a part of this journey.